Today I'm joined by Rob Kosker, Managing Director at Adamantem Capital. Welcome, Rob.
Terrific to be here.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us a bit more about your background and your career in private equity? I know you've spent many years in this sector and it's a very exciting career that you have.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity to come here today and share a bit of my story with your investors. I started off in private equity back in the late 90s when we started Pacific Equity Partners. Spent a few years there and then went to London and worked with Texas Pacific Group and then returned as a managing director in Pacific Equity Partners' second fund. Was there till the middle of 2014 when I left and took over as the CEO of Social Ventures Australia, which is one of a not-for-profit leading Australia's impact investing world. And then in 2016, we started Adamantem Capital, myself and Anthony Kerwick, and we've been developing our mid-market Australian and New Zealand private equity platform ever since.
That's a very interesting story, and I know mid-market buyout in Australia, it's a very unique space in the sense that there are not that many private equity players who operate in that space. Do you see the competition has been increasing lately, or how do you find the market in terms of the size of the opportunity set?
When we started in private equity, we were focusing on the mid-market, and then over time, as the industry grew, we started to focus on larger and larger transactions. When we started Adamantem, we wanted to focus back on the mid-market because we'd seen that there was less competition in that space. Most of the large capital had come into the larger than $300 million enterprise value transaction space, and there was a shortage of capital to focus on assets that were too big for family offices and too small for the listed market. And so that's where we focus at Adamantem, companies with an enterprise value of between $100 and $300 million.
When we say buyout, what exactly do you do? What is your strategy? Can you explain it to us?
Well, there are lots of situations where you might have a privately held company or a founder-led company where some of the shareholders want to leave and other shareholders want to stay, or a public company where there's a management team that has a real growth alternative, but they don't get support from the public markets to pursue that.
So would it be majority equity stakes that you acquire in those businesses?
Absolutely. We acquire control positions. So we own anything from 51% to 100% of a company.
Can you give us a few examples of the deals that you closed and maybe already exited?
Sure. Well, the first deal we've invested in and exited was a company called Servian, which is a data and analytics consulting business. We worked with Tony Nicol, who was the founder of that business, to grow it from a 200-person consulting business to an 800-person business in the 2.5 years that we owned it, and ended up selling it to a large global consolidator. Another business we've owned is Highgain. Has fed most of the Melbourne Cup winners over the last 10 years. And we were able to support Greg Manley, who was the founder of that business, to launch into the US and buy Mitavite, which is the second leading brand in Australia and double the scale of that enterprise.
That's impressive. Yeah, incredible stories. I love hearing those case studies. Rob, I know you're one of the very few private equity players in Australia and globally who have truly incorporated environmental, social governance framework into your investment process. Would you share with us how you do it and maybe also give some brief examples on how it is done or how it should be done?
You can't create value without thinking about environmental sustainability and social outcomes. And we do that as part of our due diligence process and part of our stewardship activities with our portfolio companies. As an example, every company that we invest in, we do a greenhouse gas emission baseline and develop a net zero plan for the company to execute within the first 10 years. We also take stock of what the gender diversity is in the leadership team and the business overall, and put in place plans with the companies to get to what we call a 40-40-20 mix at the leadership team level. So there's at least 40% men and women in the senior leadership team of the organisation. We think it's really important that we do our best to look like the community that we're investing in, so we can understand the opportunities and risks in businesses that we're attracted to.
That's great. Rob, what is the minimum investment ticket size to invest in your funds?
Generally, our minimum investment is $10 million. We've got a group of institutional investors like Wilson Asset Management, 60% of which are offshore, 40% of which are in Australia, that have supported us over a number of funds now.
That's why I'm so excited that we have this opportunity to bring to our retail shareholders and give them access to high-quality investment teams and the investment strategy that you manage. Thank you.
And it's great to have such a great partner as WAM as we go on our investing journey.